Oh, cool. Okay, so we clone it into a thing. I have a word tip. Let's move this into Bootcamp. Good. So let's start. First of all, create a let's create a README file. All right, now let's start working. Oh, just some ground rules. This is a tutorial, but feel free to like speak up anything that you guys don't understand or want to explore a bit further. I'm just gonna try to cover as much as we can. And if I don't have time, please feel free to post whatever your question is onto Slack, and I will reply on that later. Okay, so let's create a new page. So index.html. Right. So HTML5. This is about me page. Now we want to do Bootstrap, so look for Bootstrap. CSS and jQuery. You guys may see this, but so the general rules of applying CSS is that you put all the CSS into head, but they are above the title, so the title should always be the last one. And that's just it doesn't really affect anything. It's just to make it cleaner, and it's just I don't know. I think it's a good practice in a way. So you group everything together. And for the JavaScript, it's a different thing. So if you link them from somewhere outside, like your external script, you should always put them at the very bottom of your body. Okay. So we have that right now. Let's start with building the navbar. Showing up portfolio. Right. So let's start with this. So we're gonna try doing it the simple way. We're just gonna use the navbar and see how that works. All right. So something like this, right? So get that. Here. So this container. How many things? Just put this navbar. So let's run this. Explorer. All right, so this is the navbar, but this is on the left-hand side, so we wanted to move it to the right-hand side. And if you look a bit closely to the class of this, you will see that this is display flex, I believe. Yeah, so this is display flex. So what you can do is you can say, I believe justify content flex n. So if you guys don't understand what this is, you guys can have a look at Flexbox. So basically, this is what we use inside of floats that you guys learned in week 1. So this is what we call Flexbox. The main purpose is to make things go next to each other with a lot of cool thing. And I already linked this on the resources, so you can have a look and you guys can try and understand what I did. And the justify content I just did is right here. So when I say justify content, I do flex end, it push everything to the end. Same here. So I'm just gonna do that. I think Bootstrap has something similar, but for now I'm just gonna do my old CSS because I try my best to keep my CSS apart from Bootstrap. So new file that says CSS syntax.css. So this is what this is navbar nav. But now link them together. But, so now that way, right? The problem is when this go inside, we start seeing this, and this is because navbar. This is the default behavior of navbar, right? And we don't want that. What we want is this load too long. Well, we want something like this, right? And I already show you guys how to do it with grid. So now let's try something different. Let's try something that we use grid, but we don't use it to stack on top of each other. I remember I can do that in Bootstrap 3. I think it's follow up into Bootstrap 4. Let me find. Display. Responsive display utility. Oh, there you go. Okay, so display breakpoint value. All right. So in summary, what I'm trying to do is this. What I'm trying to do is, if it's gonna be, I think this is about large. So if it's large, then do this. If it's not this, if it's smaller than large, completely hide this navbar and display something else. So let's try and see how that works, right? So we have something called display property. This is a utility class. What you can do is this, right? So we have a navbar right here. We can say is when you are smaller than large, so display medium, display none, so don't show it, right? So display medium, medium, and no, this should be large to be, so if it's large then flex, if it's medium, if it's what, none, be something like this. Let's try. So when it's large, then it's flex. If it's smaller, then it's none. Yeah. All right. So what's happening here is this. So from last breakpoint above, it's gonna be flex, which is the default of whatever the navbar is using. I know it's display flex, but if you guys are using something else, you can change that flex into whatever you want. And d none is when it's lower than large, it's gonna display none. So it's gonna be something like that. See, so now it's completely gone. So because we already have that, what we can do is we can say we can have another navbar that we want, right? And in this case, all we want to do is we want to build that, and that is quite simple. We can just have 2 rows, right? So we have another nav, and in here we have rows. We have another row. Actually, because this one already won, I don't really want to do it. Let's just not use script at all in this one. So let's make this title, and have here your name. And in here you have links container, I guess. And in here you're gonna have 3 links, right? 1, 2, 3. So a link multiplied by 3. This is about, this is contact me, and this is portfolio. Right. So we're just gonna leave it here. We don't start anything, and let's see how that works. Right. So we have this, right? But we don't want this to happen. We only want this to only show when this is hidden. Right. So what we can do is we can say with this nav, display none. Display when it's large, display none. When it's not large, display facts. Right. So what's happening now is now it's gone. And when you slow it, the main one gone, the second one appear. Right. So that's another way for you to do it. And then the rest of them is quite easy. You just need to style this to make it work. So we can do it. So this already display flex, right? So flex direction to be column, right? Okay, I have no idea what this is. Okay, so flex direction column. So we want everything to be in the middle, and so flex is column. Then this side is justify content. So justify center, item center. Okay, you don't need this. But so now it's in the middle. But even if you, usually you're gonna see this, right? So flex direction into the column, you will see that even though the parent is something like this, your child is always contained to, like, it will always wrap on the width of it only wrap without a contain. So you see the blue box right there. It doesn't fulfill the whole parent like it should be. It will not be like this. There's only wrap around your content. So that's the basic behavior of flex direction column. So it will always do that. So in order to fulfill it, to fill the parent, you have to do width. Actually, let's do the background color so you can see it. Colorize blue. Yeah, looks so bad. Light blue. Okay, and then if you do width, it will fulfill it. But again, it will push itself away that way. But we can do just text align and center it, and it'll look like that. All right. So let's make yourself in here. Right. So in this one we have small screen nav. Right. Flex direction column. So the title is something like this. Right. So now we have that, and we can come back and change this bit so we don't have navbar anymore. This can become your name. Right. So the rest of it is quite simple on how you styling it, right? But the lesson to learn here is there's a bunch of things that you can do. Not just stick with either the navbar or the grid, like I said. There'll be time when you guys start using this because the grid doesn't work anymore. It cannot do whatever you guys want to do. Then it's time when you guys think about switching the whole object around so that you guys can have a completely different thing to start doing something like this. All right. So I'm just gonna skip the whole navbar because the rest is just styling. So let's continue doing the second bit. Index. All right, box. So now we go to the main container, right? So by nav. All right. So content section Right. So in the section we have, this is not in the middle. All right, let's push it to the middle. So we have a row. And let's say this is roughly 6, so call 6 offset 3. So column 6 is say 6 column offset 3 is having empty 3 column to the left side. You guys will see what I mean by this. Let's put something in here, refresh the page, and you guys have that. So if you guys investigate it, you see that it has an empty space on the right hand side. So that's the offset. The more offset you can learn is in here. Yeah, so offset column. Offset right there. So that's offset in the column. All right, so that's that. Now let's do what they want. Okay, so next one, about me. There is a navigator, a diff. So you Bootstrap have a separator, divider. What's divider? Nah, let's not do this. So we have a divider and we have a picture. Okay, so honestly, I have no idea how to do this with using a grid. I still feel that this is something that you guys should do using float, because using grid, you guys will never have it to be wrapped around the image like this. It can work like that. So I think this bit, you guys still have to use float for this. So let's try it. Have a divider, right? Then we have this whole bit. So image, yeah, placeholder.com, pics of the cat, and contain about me text. All right, let's find some Lauren. So it looks something like that, right? So now let's styling it. So with the divider, there's a huge way, a different way that you guys can do. But in this one, I'm just gonna use the most usual way that I did is that whole thing is just a div. So what I can do is in here, divider, I can have width to be 2 pixels, which now, sorry, not width, height 2 pixels, would now create some empty space that you guys can do background color red. So it goes something like that. You guys can change the colors if you guys want. I'm just gonna use soon. Or yeah, sure. Let's try that. But and we create some spacing on top and at the bottom. So margin. 10 pixels, 0. Right. So that's our divider. Right. So and then now your image. So again, I still think this is something you guys should use float. Because you guys use float, you guys see it wrap around. So I think that's the only way for you to do it. So we have some margin to the right and some margin to the bottom. Right, so create some space around it. Right. So let's create an ID on this one. My pics. Right, so divider my pics. Oh, sorry. ID. Right. That. Now, what the next thing that I want to show you guys that so this is nice 890, right? So let's go down to index. So this index is 890. This is 765. Right. So when you guys go a bit smaller, it said that okay, it should do this, right? And she should do that. All right. So let's do it. Let's create a background color so that you guys know what's happening to this. So section, so this is our main thing, right? So ID and content. So main contain. Yeah. Adding to be 10 pixel to be large, right? But so that's our content, right? So now what I said is when it goes smaller, it should shrink the size. So we do it by adding some class into this thing. So now we're saying that regardless of what size you are, always have 6 column and offset 3. Meaning what? Meaning on this one, you guys, regardless of how you shrink, it will always keep that. But we don't want that. We want it when it's smaller, it start putting it out. It start stretching, right? So because we are already breaking at large, so let's do it large point. So only when you're large and bigger, you have a 6 column and the offset 3. If you go smaller, what you should have is 12. So because we're still the breakpoint you guys can see by this navigation, right? So if it's large up above, you guys can see this. If it's smaller, then it starts switching to that. That's when you guys see that to be over there, right? Okay, section row. Right, yeah. So when you guys above, it's shrink down. When you guys smaller than large, it's expanding to full size. And that is because you guys can use something called mix and match in the grid system. So if you say grid and you set to horizontal, read this and you guys understand that. Just quickly, let me go through how Bootstrap work with grid option, right? So the way it works is what it's actually doing is asking your computer, right? Your browser, what is the size of your browser now, right? And if it's your extra large, what it's doing is it's looking at your code and say, do I have some extra large layout? In this case, I don't have it, right? It go to large. Do I have a large layout? Yes, I do. I have this. Then it apply this to my layout. And then if I go smaller than large, right? What it's actually doing is it's asking, do I have a medium layout? No, I don't. Do I have a small layout? No, I don't. Do I have an extra small layout? Yes, I do. It's have this. Then I start applying it, and it will always go down to small and extra small. This is a bit redundant because you guys can totally remove this, and it's still gonna work. The reason being, so if I refresh this, you guys see the same thing, right? The reason for this being, if you guys don't put anything, it's gonna, when it go to medium, it's gonna ask, do I have medium? No, I don't. Do I have small? No, I don't. Do I have extra small? No, I don't. And then it default itself to 12 column. That's how Bootstrap does. So because of that, you guys can do something like this and have it expanding to fit the size. It look a bit bad though. And my color is way off. Here we have a container. Oh, imagine. Yeah, can go something like that. Yeah, anyway, ignore that. Right. So I think that cover a bit of this. right? Rest is the fixed footer. The fixed footer, I showed it last time, but it doesn't really change regardless of whether you guys use a Bootstrap or not. Bootstrap is just a bunch of CSS someone already written it, and you guys use it by basically importing this file. And if you open this file, what you guys actually see, I'm gonna remove the min part here because the min is minify, which make it really hard to read. But it's so much smaller so that when your machine download it, it's being smaller. Yeah, the size of the file being smaller. But if you remove this, you will see that it's just a bunch of CSS, right? Someone already written this, and you guys just using it. So therefore, whenever you guys using Bootstrap or no Bootstrap, don't feel being hold back to not writing your CSS anymore, right? Bootstrap is just a helper. You guys should always use your CSS when you guys building a website. And that's what I meant when I say I will try to make my usage of Bootstrap class to the minimum as possible, even if there's a Bootstrap class for that. I'm just gonna do a quick footer. I don't think it's really hard. I'm just gonna do a quick and simple way to use fix. How do I put in footer? So let's look at the copyright HTML code. So that. And for the footer position, fix bottom 0, left 0 and right 0. Right, so it go like that. And this one, not that. Wait, not that. You can do some padding and text align. Right, so just a quick thing to say about the left and the right here. So most of the time, if you guys use position fixed or absolute, you guys gonna stumble on top of left and right, or top and bottom, and you guys will but most of the time you guys gonna try to make whatever the fixed or the absolute to be the full size of the parent, right? Either the width or the height. So one way that you guys can do it is using left and right to be 0. So when you guys have left to be 0, sorry, this case right to be 0, you guys see how it stick to the right and then it fit the content. By saying left and right to be 0, you force it to stretch itself out to fit the whole parent size, right? And if you guys can do that, you guys can do exactly the same thing with top and bottom. So top 0, and it forces itself to fulfill the whole height. But that's not the only way. The other way you guys can do is saying instead of this, you can have a width of 100%, right? And it's gonna still do the same thing. Or with the top, no, I don't want all that. You guys instead of width, you can have height, and it's still doing the same thing. Just a quick tips here and there so that you guys can use. Right, we're not gonna break that anymore. Let's leave that. Right, so padding of 20 pixel.
Hey
Okay.
Trey,
Yep.
a newbie question here.
Yep.
So as far as I know, maybe I got it wrong. So the width 100% is somehow, so when we say width 100% is correspond to the outer container of the folders.
Yes,
It's going
correct.
to
The
display
parent.
100%. Okay, so if the parent, you're going to shrink 80%, so that's going to display 80% as well.
So this one, right? If you said Width to be 18%. Oh, actually not. Oh, okay. So the fix is actually. Oh, sorry, my bad. So the fix is actually, if you say absolute, then it will be the parent. If it's fixed, it's gonna be the screen size.
regardless. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is for the sticky folder, we
Mm-hmm,
can do yeah. So typically when we do the positioning and we have a positioning, then we have top, left, right, bottom
mm-hmm.
to define a position. So what you're saying is to achieve the same things, we still need the position fixed, but the height 100%. Oh, sorry, the width 100% without any specific positioning.
No, I
Is that a
mean,
right interpretation or?
no, sorry. So what I'm saying is, in setup, you guys can write top 0 and bottom 0 to make it sorry, not top and right, left and right to be 0 and 0 to make it stretch. What you guys can do is you can just like right or left, and you guys can do width. And if you guys working on fix, then what I'm just seeing is it's gonna use the whole screen. Sorry, whole not whole screen, whole viewport width to fit that.
Oh, I see.
So there's two
Okay,
ways. So you
so
can
which is
do left and
yeah.
right,
So
or you
one
guys
way
can do
is
left and width or right and width.
right. So basically, just telling you from the left hand side. So the left, sorry, the left side goes to the position 0, and the most right goes to position 0. Somehow you just stretch it, or you can say either left or right plus a width 100% is also going to stretch it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So just different way. Sometimes you guys will have a problem with using left and right. One way I can think of is that when you guys start using CSS animation, like if you guys can do transition, let's just play it around with. Right. So transition is something that we use for animation, and you guys say that I want my whole thing to shrink and then expand, like slowly thing. What you guys can do is see how it has some animation, right? So that's because I use transition. So I'm saying for 1 second, anything change. In this case, width
Yeah.
from 100 to 0, then it's string and thing, right? So you guys cannot do this with right because it doesn't do anything. It's just a right to have a value to right to not have a value. It doesn't work. So some of the time you guys want to use width, and some of the time you guys want to use left and right. It depending on how you guys want to do it. This is quite cool. I haven't done this in a while. Right. So I think
Thanks.
I'm gonna close up the index. Anyone have any other question?
I've got one more question about the offset large free,
Mm-hmm.
which you put in the code. So what it's saying is so it's do this empty space stuffing at the left hand side
Mm-hmm.
of that container. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying, right?
Right there.
Okay. So that's useful. Oh, sorry. Say yeah. So what it's saying is the stuffing free columns at the left hand side only.
Yes. So
Okay.
usually when you do your layout, you usually do from top to bottom and then left to right. Or left
Right.
to no top to bottom then left to right. So you define your row, then your column, then your row again. And so that's why this thing is quite nice because remember the exercise that you guys have at the beginning when you guys learn about Bootstrap, when you guys have to put like an empty column. And if you have an empty column, it doesn't make any sense. If another developer looking at it, it's like, oh, why is this column here? It doesn't have any content in it. So by just adding this class, you completely omit the empty column.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like a stuffing. Right. So
Yes.
stuff is three columns at the left hand side, and the context is 6. So the right hand side is 12 minus 9, which is 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another way of doing a centering.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. No, this is okay. Can I do this? Nope, because it needs to know how large I am. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone have any?
Yeah, so it looks like it's offset. Basically, you define a number, then whatever left is going to give the content. If you don't specify what's how many columns does the content takes.
Yeah, because by default, if you just have this, if you don't have that, what it's gonna do is gonna take the full size, because this is
That makes
equal
sense.
to 12. Not really equal to 12. What it's actually doing is, if you have a bunch of this, then it's gonna divide the space equally between the column. So saying you want to have
Yep.
3 columns with same size, you guys can do that, because you guys don't have to remember what the number is. And it also works when you guys have like a very odd number of columns, saying 5, because 12 cannot divide by 5. You can have something like that. And so you don't have to actually remember what number is, right? It's just divide the whole space by 5.
Yep. That makes sense.
And if you guys saying you guys want this to 6, like half the screen, and the rest of them divide by the other 4. If you guys do 6 here, it's gonna do 6, and I think the other one doesn't have enough space, so it push it down.
Yeah. So when I say the offset, it always means starting from the left hand side.
Yes.
From the direction wise. Okay.
All right, cool. Any other question? Yes, no, no. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. One more question. I promise the last one for this one.
All right.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the net bar, I basically tried the flex display, like what you did, is to move all of those link right hand side, but I failed for some reason. So can I just take a real quick look in on your code? Where did you put the deflex and the justified content?
Not that. Here, I think. Yeah, so nap by nap. I have a link of this on resources, I believe. The whole code bane. If I can just quickly find it. Resource. Yeah, I think this is the one. Usually I use this for sharing the code around if you want. So if you put this class, so this is the utility class from Bootstrap to do exactly what I just did. And it just pushes out down this side. So add this class in that element. All right, cool. Anything else, people?
Yeah, so you basically add this add to the container, which is wrap around all the links.
Yes.
Right. So yeah. So I think what I did is very much on the one level upper, which is the overarching nav bar. So that doesn't work. It's what's the rule of thumb to apply justified content and d dash flex? Because I read through the complete guide of the CSS, and what it does is basically justified content is a property of the flexbox itself, but
Yes,
it
correct.
looks like you're applying the flexbox on the nav bar, the nav tag,
This one?
while you're applying the justified content in the inner container. So
No. So
yeah.
so this thing, the reason why I use flex in here is because by default navbar use flex. So if you look at the navbar thing, yeah. So the navbar by default already using flex, right? So what I did is, if like I can use display block here, but the problem is if I use this, then it break the whole the whole flex system that they're using. So because I know that they're using flex, so that's why I have to use flex here. That's the only thing. The everything in Bootstrap I think use flex, and in this one, as usual, it's also using flex, and you can see this here. It's display flex, and because it's display flex, then this whole thing is a flex box, and that's why I can use this to change the position of where my links is.
Okay, that's good. The whole world makes sense again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
so
Okay,
it's just the flex box everywhere, and this is what we've been using, I think, for a couple of years now. Right.
right. So, are there the good documentations that telling us which property it implements the flag box, which property doesn't, or maybe we should do what you do, basically just inspect the code and see what property get
So
applied.
first of all, have a look at this, familiar yourself with this, and try a bit of this out because this is the core Flexbox. And when you understand this, then just go in and play around with this because everything is a Flexbox, right? So if it's display flex like this, which I believe most of Bootstrap is, then you can play with whatever uh, property of flex that you guys want to put, and it's gonna work. Some of it will break what is supposed to happen, but uh, yeah, like try it, and if it doesn't work, try something else.
Right. Okay. Cool. One more question. Sorry, although so I promised to be the last one. So the Denon, I try to catch up because it's running pretty quick to me. So the Denon, can you just I know there's a background you put a Denon there. What's the purpose of doing this?
So denon is basically if the full class name would be the extra small non, but because Bootstrap completely removed this, so you that's why you have denon. So what it's actually doing is it do exactly how the layout does, right? So when I'm at large,
Right.
it say, do I have anything belong to large? Yes, I do. Display facts.
Right.
So it's displayed out. When I go to medium, it say, do I have any medium? No, I don't. Small, no.
Yeah.
Extra small? Yes, I do. Be none. So it's display none.
Okay, I got that. Yeah, I think that the missing part is the XX, the
Yeah,
extra small was missing in there, so it's causing me
yeah.
a
So
bit of
that's
confusion
how
out there.
Bootstrap decide to do. They don't put XX anymore. If you guys can use
Right.
Bootstrap 3, you guys will have XX. But I think this is just Apple want to have the phone name in it, so that's why they don't allow it to work.
Yep.
All right,
Okay, cool.
cool. So
Makes
that's it.
sense. Yep.
All right. So now let's try on the form page is quite simple, so I'm not gonna touch it unless you guys want me to. But for now, I'm just gonna do the portfolio page and see how that works. All right. So portfolio page. Wait. So let's do this. All right. So copy everything. Portfolio. Right. Since we don't but then you guys start seeing that a bit of this we can reuse, right? So let's reuse it. This whole thing, move it into something that we share around, called styles, or yes, maybe we can call it share. Uh, then this is the rest of the index. In index, in addition to this, we're gonna have another one called share. Right, so split it. Let's see. All right, go back and make sure that our page is still working fine. Yes, it is. Okay, now let's go to portfolio. There's a portfolio, and we don't have it yet, so let's remove it. But so everything in the navbar is the same. We don't really care about that. Let's go down and start working on this bit. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So 5 thing. Okay. So this is the time when you guys need to ask yourself about how many row this is. All right. So why am I asking that? The reason is that if you guys look into this and tell me that, except for portfolio, actually I need the portfolio and the divider, right? So just remove this only. Sorry, my bad. All right. Portfolio. Right. So if you guys read into this, ignore this bit, only this three thing, and you guys tell me that yes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 3 rows, 1 row, 2 row, 3 rows, right? The problem with that is this. So if you guys do 3 rows, what happening is how when your screen is a bit larger, right? How do you guys have another thing up here? Let's code this out in the simple way. So let's see. So we have 3 rows, right? And then each of them we have just a simple image for now. So call the two. And image, right? Right, so we have this. Let's run it. Actually, let's link the page over. So let's go with the big one. Portfolio link to that. Right, portfolio. No, I need the footer. Oh, I haven't got a share. But there you go. But that thing is on the left hand side. Text a lie. Right. So this is how it works, right? So you guys have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So the column, and each column are split by half, right? So now let's say that you guys say, oh, my screen is too big. I want to expand this, right? So now instead of large 6, I say my large is 8. Not 68, 8. Offset by 2. And when it's medium, or say when it's small, then that's when it go down to 6. So 6 is 3, right? Right. Now suddenly this happened, right? See how much space you guys have left in here and in there. And it doesn't look good because you have so many space, but you don't use it at all, right? So how do you deal with that? And the answer is you can't if you have more than 1 row, right? Because if you have them in 3 rows, each of them are their own rows. They cannot combine into each other. That's when we use something in Bootstrap that called, oh, what do they call? I think wrap. Bootstrap has something called wrap, column wrapping, right? So the what's happening here is that, so if you have a column 9 here, you have a column 4 and column 6. Column 4 will go down to a new line because 9 plus 4 is 13 more than 12, so it has to go to new line, right? And 6, because it has the same thing, it can be here. So what you guys can do is, instead of having so many rows, you guys can have 1 row, right? And bear with me for a sec. Right, but if you guys do this, then what happened? You have a row, you have a bunch of columns. These things will tell this row to split the space between them, to split the space of this row for 6. And what's gonna happen is that's not really what I'm expecting to happen. Why does it do this? What's the row? Flex wrap, wrap. Flex wrap. Next direction to be row. Justify content. Bottom. See. Split the cell from 4. And then it. Wait, sorry. Give me a sec. Let me try to understand how I can explain to you in here. Row, column. Is that because the size of? Oh, it's because the column grows in size. Okay, so one bit of the flex that you guys need to understand is that when you guys set the size of the flex box, it doesn't guarantee that the flex box will stay at that size, because a flex on its own can grow. See how this flex row equal 1? So not flex row equal 1. The content of the box will grow if the size of the column will grow if the content of that column is larger than the size of the column. So see how this column have exactly 200 size, 200 in width? It because of the content is actually 200. So if I come in here and I say instead of 200, this become 100, what's gonna happen is, oh, because this already go, I need to change this to 100. Yeah, see now, this is actually the size of the column, because the column is only that. That's bit 133.109. That's how the whole width of this divides by 6. And as you guys can see, if I make this to 200, suddenly one column become way bigger. So this become 244 or 215 something, right? So the content of the column will grow based on that. But in any case, we don't want that. So usually the way you work is you should not, first of all, you should not have your data directly be underneath. In this case, I don't want my image to be underneath the column. What I want to do is I'm going to create my image container here. And I put my image in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say my image container, I need a portfolio file, portfolio.css. And so portfolio.css. So image container. So with no image of it. So with 100%. And if I do this 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Suddenly now it's become this. So what I'm doing is, if you guys look at this is the column, right? The column is still the same. What I did is I create this extra layer. So what this extra layer is doing is, it doesn't do anything. What it's actually doing is it will stretch to fit the parent. In this case, it fetch it be the same size with the parent, with the padding and everything, right? Without the padding. And what the next thing that I did is that I say the image, which is inside this, to only stretch to its size, which means width equals to 100%. So the image here only stretch to equal to this container. You should not do this. Do that with equal 100% on the on the flexbox. Reason being is just the same thing I said you did last time, right? Flexbox can stretch on its own. It will stretch to match its content. There is cases that there are things that you guys can do to stop it, but most of the time it will stretch to match the content. So with 100% or high 100%, to match something that can stretch doesn't make sense, and it will do some unexpected behavior. So this is what I advise you to do. So have something in here that is not flex, and then have the image to be 100%, which is matching the content. Stretch to be equal to the size of the content. Right. Anyway, come back to what I said last time. Right. So now if we do this, we're gonna see that one row is gonna fit all of that, but we don't want this, right? Because this is too small. And if we have more, right? So if we have more, the more we have, the smaller it look like, right? So what we can do is what? We can add how big we want it to be. And in this case, because I say 4 on one row is nice, instead of call, I can do call on last size, we can do 3. And see how it's doing exactly what it is doing right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's still here, right? If you smaller it still go down to that. And what else you guys can do? You guys can do, you guys can have different things. So like if it's large, then it's 3. If it's smaller, then it's 4. If it's on small, then it's 6, maybe. And smaller than that, just let it be. So when it's large, it's 4. When it's smaller a bit, it becomes 3. When it's smaller a bit, it becomes 2. It's a bit smaller, it becomes 1. Right? So that's something that you guys can do with one row. But you guys will not be able to do this with multiple rows, like I think most of you guys are doing it. So yeah, so lesson learned here is when you guys are doing, maybe also think about how you guys want to expand it, because if you guys just do things to match the design, then whenever they in the future the design change, then you guys will have a hard time coming back and try to fix it. So whenever I do something in my company, we do something called future proof. So we look at it, we think about, oh, so how will you change this in the future? What are the requirements that might change? Can we do something to prevent it? And if we can't, if we need to, maybe that's the case that can happen. How should we address it? And if all the results come back and say, nah, this is something stupid and no one actually going to do it, then sure, be fine to stick with multiple rows and each row have 2 columns, like what you guys did. But I will showcase you something that you guys can do in a different way, which also allow you to expand this into multiple portfolio if you want. I think that's everything I want to say for the portfolio page. I can make something a bit cooler. Ish. Not what I want. Portfolio container. Portfolio file. Divider. Right, cool. So anything that you guys want to ask about this? I don't think I have anything else to showcase on that anymore.
Yeah, Trey, a couple of questions here.
Yes.
So you basically go through an analysis, and the conclusion, I didn't quite catch it. The reason it's, I understand, the column, every single column is a flex box, and it's going to auto grow. But if you disable the flow grows, is that going to stop the behavior?
No.
The multi-container.
So the flex row. So the flex row doesn't actually do the row. The flex row, what actually is doing is, let's showcase something simple. Let's create a test page, right? Five. Oh yeah. We don't need anything. So we have a parent. We have two child. Something here. Something here. All right. So the parent display flex direction to be column. Sorry, not column, rows. And so if you guys see here, both of them are this, right? So they don't actually do anything. So what? Sorry. Put them a background color. So this one, what this color? Okay, cool. And this one we have another color. Brown. Yeah, sure. Khaki. No. What color did you guys like? Nothing. Okay.
Space
Right.
gray.
Space gray. Do we even have space gray here? No.
I don't know. Apple says that it
Yeah, I
exists.
know. I know. Apple says a lot of things. I love them. But
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, so as you can see here, the box content or box model of this child is just that it wraps around the content, right? It doesn't do anything much. It doesn't add any more space, even though the parent has the full length, right? So flex row, what it's actually doing is tell the parent like, hey, I need more space, right? Can I have more space? And what the parent does is the parent will take the empty space. I think I talked about you about this already, but the parent will take the every empty space it has and then divide by the number of flex row of all the child, then return them, split them accordingly. So in this case, right, I have two child, but I have only one flex row. So flex row one. So the combination of all the flex row in the child is one. So what the parent did is it get the remaining width, which is from here to around there, divide by one, then assigning 100% of them to the first child, right? And if I do the same thing in here, it will split them because now both of them have half of whatever the remaining size of the parent. So flex row,
So,
what it does is it tell the parent to give it more space if the parent has space. Flex row doesn't. Flex row on its own doesn't. How say it doesn't stop the column to grow or not. To grow with the
so
content or not.
that's exactly what happened in the in your portfolio example, right? So when the first four projects is take up the first role, then the two projects spill over to second, then the two was equally because the default, I believe the flat row is equal to one for all of them.
Yes,
Then
correct.
it's equally dividing, the entire space into two. So that's
Yes.
exactly what happened, right? So if that's the case, if you disable the flex growth, that's going to stop the behavior, right? So
So
it'll be very much like
what
this.
it become is, so we have one here, one here, one here, one here, and then one and two right here. So it doesn't affect anything on the first line. It will just skip everything to the left side.
Yes. So
But
that's exactly what you did here, right?
yeah, so what I did is I stopped the column to grow anymore because the way I did it is, even though that
Yeah,
the
because you put a
image,
cage around it.
yeah,
You
correct.
basically put a cage
Yep.
around it, which is not a flex box. But what I'm saying is that if you disable the flex growth, it's
Mm,
very much like you disable that auto growth feature of the flex box while you maintain um, the rest of the property of the flex box.
let's try it. I honestly don't think so, but let's see. So anyway, that's a cool thing. So one of the thing that I love about CSS is they do a bunch of things that you don't understand why. Then you come back and see how they did it, and you don't understand why. Right, so you have 6 of them, right? And because this one last time we have column, right? So something like this, right? So we have that. It doesn't look exactly like last time. Is it because it's larger? Oh, there you go. All right, so what you're saying is on this column, you say disable that.
Yeah.
Right? So let's add an ID here to be test. Just a quick thing for the rest of you guys. If anyone have a question, just say, okay? Yeah, but yes, like I said, right? So it doesn't change anything on the first line. It just changed the second line because the second line now doesn't have any grow anymore. So it doesn't ask the parent to give it more space. But all the other line is still the same. Sorry, all the thing on the first row is still the same.
Yeah. So isn't that a valid way, or maybe there is some drawback of that? I want to hear about it. So instead of having like what you previously did, collapse everything into one single row, can we just still have a separate row? Then we just disable the flex growth one.
The problem with having not really so the problem that I see with the approach of having multiple row is that at some point if you said you want your row to contain more than 2, you can't say oh I want to have say 3 of them on the same line, then when I shrink in now it becomes 2 on the same line, because saying if you do this right and then you shrink it in a bit,
Yeah.
then it become 1 2 and then you have 1 here but nothing here because your row only have 3 elements, so it doesn't push the
That's right.
next line on top of it, so it become very weird.
Yeah.
Like why do you don't have it? So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
the reason
Apologies for
behind.
the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies for the question. I didn't frame it right. So what I'm saying is that instead of have I do agree like one single row, multiple columns. However, instead of have putting a cage around the container to stop it growing, I think from a coding perspective, that's more code, more container. I typically don't like more containers. So if we can just use the CSS to disable the auto growth, then we can save a hell lot of containers.
Yeah, I see
Think
what you
it's a
mean.
better way. Yeah.
So I think one of the reason why I wanted to do first of all is because my column might not be equal to my image. So saying now, if I have a column here, right, and you see how my column is 239 pixel width, but my image is only 200. So saying now,
Yeah.
if I have like what you guys have the the, 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 the um the description of an image. Oh yeah, a cool thing that you guys can edit your HTML on here if you want. Right, it show up on there. Right, and then if you guys do position absolute and bottom 0, right, and left 0 and right 0, and you have a background color, right? See how suddenly outside of my box, sorry, not outside my box. This is correct as the column is, but it's not equal to the size of the image at all, and it's totally outside of it. So by doing this, I can. But if my column is actually bigger than my image, then I don't have the size of my image anymore. Like, sorry, I don't have a way to refer to the size of my image anymore. So the other way is for me to tell my image to actually grow. So if I say width 100% here. Oh wait, no, sorry, I can't because this is Flexbox. I cannot do that. Okay. Yes, but so if I want to do something like this, right? I want to have an image description here. I cannot anymore because my image now being something like this, smaller than my column and not even equal to my column anymore. I think that's the only way drawback. I think some of the drawback that I can think of is so the width of the image is not equal to the width of a column, and the column size is now uncontrollable because the column size is now expandable based on how big the image is, meaning that if the image is somehow random, like if you use Facebook or something and the image is based on the user, so now you cannot control your grid anymore because your grid may behave differently at different time, which is something I don't really like. Does that answer it in a bit?
Um, yeah, sort of. Yeah, probably we'll see the scenario. I know you put a bit of a scenario here, so still try to get my head around it. So what you're saying is if we have an article, so let's say for each one of them is a card type
Mm-hmm.
of things, not just the image, but also have the small descriptions in there. So the card, if we disable the auto growth, it's no longer growing. Then the text, like what you're showing here, with a bit of a background, is going to spill over to the image, so that we can't align the size of the image and the size of the text. So we have to
Yeah,
manually fix like what you're doing here.
yeah. So
Yeah.
by like the way I did uh, a cache or a container, like you said, is to make sure that whatever my container is, I don't have any padding. I don't have to do anything with Flexbox, and I can start with my content after. So that is way easier than have to do left, right like this here.
Okay. So you don't have to do this with the auto growth enabled, because
Like
it doesn't
I'm
resize the image
already in.
anyway, right?
Like I even if I do that, then I still have to do this, I believe.
Yeah,
Then
because
yeah,
it doesn't
now
resize the image.
it's a even worse problem because again I cannot control my column width, which is now see how it ah I cannot zoom, but see how it even have a bigger size because my column actually larger than my image.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what
So
I would
how
also
do
do.
you do the auto resizing of the image that makes sure it can auto resize itself
It
based on
can, so you can use width. That's the easiest way, but you should not use
okay
it on Flexbox.
image? Oh,
That's the
okay.
wrong one. This one.
Oh, because the
Can I say
Flexbox is
something? Or
is
Yeah, sorry.
for that one, I use the Bootstrap's image class.
Image what?
Image class.
hard.
It has image float and the image
Oh,
thumbnail.
this one.
That one. Yeah,
So image flute
it will
has.
take the whole width of the parents.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, if it worked, then sure. I mean, it's just a bunch of CSS, and what I did is how I do it because I know what CSS I can use, but you guys can use however it works. Let me see what. Sure. Henry, you were saying, Harry?
Yeah,
Yeah, you were saying.
yeah.
Oh yeah, Max.
I sorry, yeah, because the image float things in it's the first time I heard about it, so it's causing me have a short memory loss, and I can't remember what was the question.
Uh, but
Yeah,
one
but
good
it's
thing in here is the utility class. You guys can write like that image float is basically this two line, right? You guys can write that in CSS. No one's gonna say anything.
in the general, I see the fluid everywhere. So you do the container fluid. I'm sorry, I'm just simply not very good at the Bootstrap. So when we say fluid, what exactly is the general behavior look like? So it seems like it's being,
So
say,
this
being
container float.
affected. Yeah.
So I guess it's just different. Like I don't know how everyone understand it, but for me, I actually never use container because I hate how it do how what it does. Uh, it doesn't show here. Let's try. So if you use container, right? Then if you look at it, you have a bunch of max width, right? And so you go down and it changes the width. So it doesn't change when you guys at one breakpoint. It only changes when you guys change the breakpoint, right? Which is something I don't really like because I want my whole thing to change on the fly, right? So when I going smaller, I want to see my width actually get smaller and smaller and smaller until it transforms. That's why I generally like to use container flute. But the word flute doesn't really mean anything, I believe. So the
I
concept
think
of sorry,
sorry.
just let me finish.
I think it remove the margin and padding.
Not really. You still have the margin left. The container flute, what it's actually doing is doing max width. So you guys see a bit of margin here, but what it's actually doing is having margin auto, meaning that whatever my width is trying to center me in the middle. It margin never change. It's always auto. So if you guys look at this, see that,
Mm-hmm.
and if you guys shrinking in, it's just change itself based on whatever the size of this. Yeah, that. But anyway, sorry. Let me come back to what I'm saying. So the idea, I think the concept of flute is that regardless of what screen size you are having, the web page should look okay. But the problem with that is that you guys cannot cover every single breakpoint. It's not possible, like in a way. There will be some screen size that look very, very ugly. Because imagine something like this, right? So you guys have this. What's the font size of this? This is font size is 16, right? But if you guys going down to mobile, 16 actually huge, like so huge. It's just because you guys looking at here, you guys say, oh, this is normal, like normal, right? It's okay. If you guys go and look at this on your phone, you guys gonna say, what the hell is this? Because the font size on the phone is need generally need to be smaller than the font size on the PC. And I honestly don't know why, but I think it's just our eyes when we read the font size, we just say like it depending on how big your screen is, and we try to relatively look at it. So if whenever I try to put my website from the desktop to the phone, I always see that the font size is so huge, and I need to move it back. But because of that, there will be some point when your font size it just doesn't match anyway with your thing. So saying something about here, right? When you smaller have a large font size, but your whole page go to the smaller breakpoint. That's where it look bad. So there will the whole spectrum of width on that you guys need to cover. You guys will not be able to cover all of that. You guys will be able. I think most of the page now will be able to cover the phone and the iPad and the PC, and anything else between that. They just hope for whatever the best they can. They just cannot cover everything. And I think that's the whole concept of flute. But I don't think anyone is able to do that.
So, so Trey, let me summarize. So what you're telling me is the fluid keywords is basically is a enhancement. It's basically is a display enhancement during the resizing. So what the fluid means it resize everything under this container, including the font, as the as the screen growing larger or smaller.
Yes,
But
so
without the keywords, everything is going to become very static. So the font size is going to become static, and the width is going to be still
yeah,
reasonably
so
relative.
so the thing is, it's a concept, okay? It's something that as a designer or a developer you're trying to achieve. It's not something that Bootstrap does. Bootstrap doesn't define what Flute is. No one define what it is. It's just the expectation of user and the expectation of the product manager. They want that to work on every single device, and that is what we call Flute. Or at least that's how I understand fluid is.
Okay.
All right. So, any other question, or I should wrap this up right now?
One last question for me is how did you, because you showed a magic that you're basically typing the same things on different line. How did you do that?
Okay, everyone asking thing. All right. So, first thing is what I'm doing right now is you guys are not having the same Visual Studio Code as I am, because before I use Visual Studio Code, I use Atom. Right? Atom is another thing similar to this. So what I did is I use a key map from Atom. So whatever I'm showing you guys now is not going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to show you guys how to find what is your map, what's the key thing on your own. So if you guys this right, then go selection, look at that, and whatever this thing say in here, that's the keyword that you guys have to sorry, that's the shortcut that you have to do. So in my case, because I use Atom key map, so I have Control D, you guys will gonna have a different thing. So do that, hit that, right, Control D, and then it's gonna do that. You guys do, and just tell me what's the keyword on your side.
Command D. That's a Mac.
That's the Mac. Anyone else have different thing? Cynthia, what's yours?
No, same thing. I'm using Mac, so Command D.
Harper, Devin, you guys even there? No, I guess. Okay. Yes, but that's how you find it. Okay, so selection at next occurrence. And a bunch of more things that you guys can find is Control P. In my case, let me see if we can find it here. Oh yeah, command palette. So this thing, it opened a bunch of things that you guys can find in here. And so what's everything in here is a shortcut to every single thing that you can find. And in my case, I use Control P. So there's a lot of things like Git. You can push, you can pull. There is, in my case, I use file, advanced file. A bunch of this is from another plugin. And yeah, that's everything that you guys learn about here. And if you have time, try to go through this. Or so this is the marketplace of VS Code, right? So it provides a bunch of plugin that you guys want to use. So like do a quick Google, like I don't know. What I have here is a color bracket in VS Code, something like that, and it will tell you a bunch of things that you guys can install and how to use it. And install it is quite simple. You guys go here, you guys search it, bracket, and then there's a bunch of things for you guys to use. Have a look at that. This is actually quite the reason why VS Code is popular, because the marketplace is actually extensive. All right. Anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah. Is that better to follow the design or just one? Because the bootstrap behavior is to leave the container in the middle, right? But in our design, if larger is on the left side. So
Yeah, I saw that. I honestly, this is weird. Honestly, I don't understand why.
yes, it is very
I did thought that a lot of you guys should do it wrong. I'm sorry. I have to be honest. I haven't read the requirement before I mark you guys. I haven't, but I haven't looked at you guys' assignment. I haven't actually see this. I just know whatever on the README, and then I go from it.
Mhm.
But I didn't
Okay.
see this, so I thought this need, like, what the hell, man? This needs to be in the middle. Who the hell built this website?
Yeah, no, I'm just asking, in your workplace, do you usually follow the design or modify
So
it?
so our structure is sorry, our workflow is that uh the product manager said something, he requires something, he go
Mhm,
down and he asks the designer to build something for him. The designer then do it. Then she will come and ask me like, oh, how do you think about this? Can you do this? Can you do that? And then I would tell her something about, oh, I think you should do this and that. And she get that opinion. She come back. She build something. She gave it to the product manager, and if they like it,
mhm.
they pass it along to me, and then I fight the hell out of it to make it to do something I want. And we sit there, we talk, we discuss about what we can do, and then we decide on what we want to do.
Okay.
But like, I don't like this.
It
So
is.
Trey, so the way you guys communicate on a design decision, so do you typically do a wireframe? Then you basically use the wireframe as your single source of truth as you implement.
Yes and no. Yes, because that would be my initial goal. Everything, like I treat everything on it, it's like a Bible. Like I follow everything to the thing. But like what we feel like is that when we build it, then it doesn't feel the same. I have no idea why. Like we have the same font size, we have the same margin and everything, but it just doesn't feel the same way. So then we start going in, we use CSS, we use just that, and then we start tweaking here and there. We're adding some padding here, changing the font size, and then we come to a point where we say, yes, this is okay. Then we just go with that. And if we have time, we go back and fix the design. And if we don't, we just leave it like that. And
Yeah,
I mean, if it's a
I
small
understand.
thing, but if it's a large thing, then sure, we have to come back and fix.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree that you need a bit of a massage on the detailed things. So my question is because if you look at the wireframe, it's basically give it a map of the container and roles, right? So do you guys use that as an implementation guide with regard to how do you divide out how to implement a container? For example, do you need two containers in the same role or like a
Um,
multiple nested container? So how do you,
Usually that's what we call implementation detail. As a developer level, sorry, as a designer level, they don't really care about that. They just say, oh, this is my design, and then it come down to me, and then I will talk with some of my worker, and I ask them, okay, how should we do this? Like, how can we do it? And then we start looking at the ideas of how to do it. But as a designer, she doesn't need to know how we're doing it.
okay. So how, so for example, if you decide to move on tomorrow and um, sorry, my AirPod just out of battery. Just give me a second.
Yeah, at some point, I was taught like Henry just like I just do a time jump when you change it. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
while we're waiting for Harry, anyone else want to ask anything, or it's just that it's just him? Anything else? No. Okay.
Now for me.
All right.
Yeah.
So
So Trey,
yes,
Trey. So
with that.
yeah, just to wrap up my very last question is so where I'm coming from is it, um, I I'm not sure how do you guys, for example, if someone is going to is going to maintain what you have built, what he's going to inherit. So is he typically just going to read your source code to understand what it is, or there's a implementation documents as you just mentioned, or there is a or a technical design documents out there. Basically, you establish all the container structure, because when it comes to the structure things, I basically just imagine you need some sort of documents you have to deal with for team to team or personnel to personnel. So I'm just wondering how do you do that in the practice?
Sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is for example, tomorrow you leave the company and someone else is going to take over, then he's going to maintain what you have built. So what is the
Yes.
best way for him to understand your work in a very short period of time?
So we don't actually have a process design way. I cannot say from a designer because I don't know how she did it. I think she was given like a couple of days to talk to the new guy about everything that she left behind. But for me, I would say like for anything regarding to the front end way, meaning how the design look like, how you build the design. I don't actually have a way to do it. You should have to dive in. Anything that I would document back is how things work. Like when you guys starting use JavaScript, you guys gonna see a bunch of mess. Sorry, not a bunch of math. A very huge application will need a huge JavaScript to run behind it for it, and that would be something that I would document. So like how JavaScript work, how this thing work, that thing work. But regarding to how the designer of the website work, I would not just document because in a way it's quite simple to understand. And more or less when we grow big, we have to make everything um, apart, meaning that
Okay.
each of it will become its own component. And the golden rule is if nothing breaks, then don't fix it. So you guys can like look at what you guys want to change and then just like change it.
Okay, fair enough. It sounds like it's a for a savvy engineer, you probably don't need it.